How's it going, everybody? I'm Stella Chung, and this is the Weekly Fix, the show where we round up all the gaming and entertainment headlines you may have missed this week. It's been a huge week for Xbox due to a document leak from their FTC trial, and we have a breakdown on all the biggest headlines from that, such as a new mid-gen Xbox, plans on the next-gen console, which seems really weird to say out loud, a handheld, and much, much more. But Xbox wasn't the only headline maker this week. We've got news on the future of Netflix's One Piece, Unity's bold new pricing model, Cyberpunk 2077, and even a pair of aliens who look like old loaves of bread. Let's get to it.
All right, here we go. Despite Phil Spencer saying multiple times that there is no need for a mid-generation refresh of its Xbox Series game consoles, leaked court documents show that Microsoft is planning to launch hardware refreshes for both the Xbox Series X and S next year. The new Series X, codenamed Brooklyn, is more compact than the original model. Like the Series S, it lacks a disk drive. The document also reveals that this console will feature 2 terabytes of storage, 16 gigs of RAM, and will come in 100% recyclable packaging. The updated Series S, codenamed Elwood, will include 10 gigs of RAM. Pricing will remain the same as their predecessors. The document notes that both consoles will be announced concurrently next summer, with Elwood arriving in August 2024 and Brooklyn in October. Xbox explained it would give a 2-month release gap between the consoles in order to give Elwood a moment to shine before Brooklyn becomes the more sought-after console ahead of the holiday 2024 season. It's interesting that Xbox is planning to make its flagship console digital only. Seems like Microsoft is pivoting away from physical games completely, and if I know gamers, not everyone will be happy about that. Speaking of new hardware, mid-generation console refreshes are not the only ambitions Microsoft has. The tech giant is planning to launch a next-generation Xbox console in 2028. A leaked document mentions this new Xbox system will be a next-generation hybrid game platform with development kits slated to launch in 2027. More interestingly, the document mentions a thin OS for under $99 consumer or handheld devices, implying that Microsoft may release a handheld device dedicated to cloud games. There's also word of next-gen DirectX ray tracing, dynamic global illumination, machine learning-based super resolution, and micro-polygon rendering optimizations. Microsoft is currently in the hardware design phase if it's still on track with this plan outlined last year. Another of the many documents leaked online this week included a 3-year-old Bethesda release schedule from before Microsoft's acquisition of ZeniMax Media in 2021. The document included some unannounced games, most notably remasters for The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion and Fallout 3. Plans must have changed, however, as the Oblivion remaster was supposed to be released in 2022. Bethesda also originally planned to have its Indiana Jones game out that year, but obviously we're still waiting on that one too. In 2023, it planned to release a new Doom game, Doom Year Zero, along with DLC the same year. And then 2024 is supposed to see the release of The Elder Scrolls VI, an untitled licensed IP game, the Fallout 3 remaster, a Ghostwire Tokyo sequel, and Dishonored 3. Other information revealed in this document included the fact that Starfield was forecasted to generate $900 million in revenue, though again, this information is likely very outdated due to the document being published before Microsoft closed its acquisition of Bethesda's parent company. So while the release schedules have certainly changed, at least we now know that all these upcoming games are a thing. So everyone act surprised whenever Bethesda announces a new game for the next few years, okay? Now, during the Activision Blizzard trial over the summer, it was revealed that Microsoft had its eyes on 100 developers it considered acquiring at one point, before narrowing it down to just 8 studios, including Sega, Square Enix, and Zynga. However, there's another little studio Xbox was eyeing: Nintendo. An email from August 2020 reveals that Spencer was enthusiastic about acquiring the studio behind beloved video game franchises such as Mario and The Legend of Zelda. Spencer noted in the email that the acquisition would be a career moment, and I honestly believe a good move for both companies. It's just taking a long time for Nintendo to see that their future exists off of their own hardware, a long time. Now obviously Spencer has yet to realize his dream of buying Nintendo, and it seems unlikely Nintendo would be willing to sell unless it suffers some sort of financial catastrophe. But Nintendo is riding high on the wave of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and the huge success of the Mario movie. I think it's going to be just fine. The email also revealed that Spencer was interested in acquiring Valve and Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, the latter of which would mean Xbox would own developers such as NetherRealm and Rocksteady, but it wouldn't own the IP, which was a sticking point for Xbox. And that's not all. In May 2022, an email chain between senior Xbox executives, including Spencer, Matt Booty, and Sarah Bond, revealed how Microsoft was scrambling to find games as the company had a huge hole in its lineup. Games originally slated to be released in 2022, including Starfield, Redfall, and Stalker 2, all being delayed, were mentioned in the email. Spencer said in the email chain, "This is really a disaster situation situation for us, given all we've invested in content across studios at our GP Content Fund. We need to learn from this and build a plan forward. He then issued a call to action from the team to ink third-party deals to circumvent the gap. Stewart responds with a roadmap of third-party releases, accurate as of May 2022, that includes a number of games that were at the time set to launch across the 4 quarters of the 2023 financial year. Of note here is mention of Resident Evil Revelations for Q2, which would be October to December 2022. This is perhaps a code name for the Resident Evil 4 remake, which launched in March 2023. Also slated for Q2 were BioWare's Dragon Age 4 and Ubisoft's Skull and Bones, both of which are yet to arrive nearly a year later. Further into the email chain is talk of the difficulty associated with getting day-and-date releases for Xbox Game Pass. What follows is a detailed and revelatory assessment of third-party options for day-and-date Game Pass launches to fill Microsoft's lineup hole. Perhaps the most eye-catching entry here is Red Dead Redemption 2, day-and-date for Gen 9, which suggests a next-gen update for Rockstar's Epic was as of last year set to be released. Rockstar has yet to make an announcement about such a game, and as with everything here, the plan may have changed. Other interesting tidbits include Microsoft's comment on Baldur's Gate 3, described as a second-run Stadia PC RPG. Given the astonishing success of Larian's superb role-playing game, that was one bad call. The emails also reveal the astonishing amount of money Microsoft is spending securing those day-and-date deals. Microsoft estimated it would cost $5 million to secure Baldur's Gate 3, $35 million to snag LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga for Game Pass, $50 million for Dying Light 2, $100 million for Assassin's Creed Mirage, $250 million for Rocksteady's Suicide Squad, which still hasn't come out, and an eye-watering $300 million for Respawn's Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now those are the broad strokes of today's Xbox leaks, but for even more info, head over to IGN.com.
Mortal Kombat 1 launched late last week, and players seem to be loving the latest entry, just not on the Nintendo Switch. It should come as no surprise that the Nintendo Switch version of Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't look as great as it does on PS5 or Xbox Series, but I don't think players were expecting the visuals to be this hilariously bad. As reported by our own Wesley Yin-Poole, the character models have been significantly downgraded in the Switch version, and their eyes seem to be popping out of their eye sockets. But not in the usual fatality sense, just in a constantly shocked face expression. Ex-user Neon Kaelistis posted a side-by-side photo of Johnny Cage as an example of how the character models on the Switch can't seem to animate any facial expressions at all. The extreme difference between the two images are ridiculously funny. Another ex-user at KingDracula405 posted a video clip of Sindel and Shang Tsung facing off, with Shang walking on and way off the actual fighting arena every time Sindel would try to walk towards him or away from him. Sam Aberdeen1 on X also shared 4 stills from the Switch MK1 gameplay that showed various bug-eyed characters and visual glitches that are extremely dumb and funny. Of course, while this is getting the fun meme treatment, it does suck that players who own MK1 on the Switch had to pay $70 for the game in this current state. This is a pretty big departure from the Switch version of Mortal Kombat 11, which performed well despite technical limitations, maintaining a decent frame rate and holding its own visually compared to other consoles. And speaking of those consoles, NetherRealm did decide to leave those last-gen consoles behind in delivering MK1, so the decision to bring the game to the Switch was an interesting one after the fact. I mean, if it can run on the Switch, it'll probably run on the PS4 and Xbox One, right? Actually, better question, does this count as running on the Switch, or is this more of an upward jog? Hopefully, some updates can be rolled out to bring the Switch version up to a more playable build, so those players can enjoy the signature, extremely gross, and visceral fatalities and see characters' eyes popping out of their heads the old-fashioned way. This next story shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, but an internal Microsoft document suggests that the long-awaited Skyrim sequel, The Elder Scrolls 6, is set to skip PlayStation 5. Axios reporter Steven Totilo tweeted the document that listed announced Bethesda games along with their platform and release window estimations. The games included Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, Fallout 76, The Elder Scrolls Online, Starfield, Redfall, and The Elder Scrolls 6. In the column for Elder Scrolls 6, the document stated that the game would not launch on PS5, and instead launch on Xbox and PC only. The release date was marked as TBC and expected to be around 2026 or later. Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo were both announced as timed exclusives for PlayStation prior to Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax. But Redfall and Starfield both launched exclusively on Xbox and PC, so I think we can expect this trend to continue. Microsoft's approach could change between now and 2026, but I wouldn't hold your breath. IGN reached out to Microsoft for a comment on the story, but haven't yet gotten a response. That said, this document lines up with a statement Phil Spencer gave GQ during an interview in 2021, claiming, "In order to be on Xbox, I want us to be able to bring the full complete package of what we have. And that would be true when I think about Elder Scrolls 6. This is definitely a bummer for PlayStation fans, but also it's a little disappointing for any fans hoping to return to Tamriel anytime soon. Realistically, 2026 or later probably means 2027 at the soonest, and considering Microsoft projected its next console iteration launching in 2028, the Elder Scrolls 6 could skip this entire generation of consoles entirely. That's just speculation, mind you, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. It's been 5 years since the announcement of Elder Scrolls 6 back at E3 2019. Do you remember E3? Simpler times. I would say hopefully we get some news on the game soon, but last month, Bethesda's head of publishing, Pete Hines, did say that Elder Scrolls 6 is in early development and to not expect any news soon. Nice try, Pete. We'll get our Elder Scrolls news by any means necessary, even if we have to go rifling through port documents.
Yesterday, Sony held its September State of Play and revealed a brand new trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that announced a release date of February 29, 2024. At the end of the trailer, there was a note that this exclusive would not be available on other formats until at least May 29th, 2024. Since Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's release date is for February, this means that Sony and Square Enix have a deal for at least 3 months of exclusivity. As a little recap, thanks to our reporter Wesley Yin Poole, the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake launched in April 2020 on the PlayStation 4. Then the enhanced Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade launched on PS5 in June 2021 and on PC in December 2021. So that was about 6 months before Intergrade launched on a different platform. I'll definitely take 3 months of waiting over 6, but Final Fantasy fans have a lot to look forward to, and in the Sony State of Play, Square released a ton of information about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, including that it has 100 hours of content. Producer Yoshinori Kitase also wrote a letter to fans on social media that the game will feature a vast world map and that the story will unfold more dramatically than ever before. Director Naoki Hamaguchi also chimed in to say Rebirth will feature fun minigames, free exploration, and so much more. Now, unfortunately, your save files from the previous game will not carry over. Hamaguchi explained that each of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project titles are meant to be standalone games, so the abilities and levels will not carry over from one game to the next. However, players will be given special bonuses if they played the previous game. Xbox Final Fantasy fans are probably going to be waiting a little bit longer specifically for Final Fantasy VII Remake titles, though Xbox boss Phil Spencer did tease that this game, along with Final Fantasy XVI, could launch on Xbox in the future when he spoke to IGN's Destin Legary at Gamescom. The future honestly looks so bright for Final Fantasy fans everywhere. It's just about time for a break, but when we come back, we've got a closer look into Unity's new pricing model and the developers who are pushing back. Season 2 of Netflix's One Piece and why you should probably be skeptical about those alien corpses. Stay tuned. And we're back. Last week, a pair of ancient aliens were revealed to the world, and they might not be what they seem. But before that, we're taking a look at the developer pushback against Unity's new pricing scheme and what to expect with Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Take it away, me. Yesterday, Unity, the cross-platform 3D and 2D game engine, posted an update on a new policy that could potentially bankrupt some developers. Unity is now requiring developers to pay a small fee every time someone downloads a game built on Unity's game engine. This new policy is called the Unity Runtime Fee, and this new pricing model will apply to developers who reach a certain amount of installs and revenue. The announcement explained why Unity would take those fees in the statement, quote, "We chose this because each time a game is downloaded, the Unity runtime is also installed. Also, we believe that an initial install-based fee allows creators to keep the ongoing financial gains from player engagement, unlike a revenue share." Unity did walk back some of its policy specifics after severe backlash from developers and insisted the fee would only apply to the initial installation of a game and that developers would not be on the hook for installations through subscription services. So installations on sub-services like Xbox Game Pass would then turn to Xbox to pay the fees instead. In the adjusted policy statement, Unity will only apply the fee to initial installations of games versus the original one, which was if a player uninstalled then reinstalled a game, that would count as 2 installs and would have to pay 2 different fees. In the adjusted policy statement, Unity will only apply the fee to initial installations of games, versus if a player uninstalled then reinstalled, counting as 2 different installs. And that demos won't count as installs, and that charity games and bundles are exempted from fees. I'm glad that charity bundles will be given a pass, but Unity didn't give any clarification on how they would detect games given out during charity initiatives versus normal game code purchases. Especially since most charity game codes and bundles are just normal codes given out, and if Unity is just detecting initial install, it's extremely hard to understand how they'll be able to weed out those installs from others. The Unity runtime fee is scheduled to be effective January 1st, 2024. Developers have universally voiced their anger and feelings of betrayal on social media, and it's only grown, even after the minuscule walkback Unity provided on its original policy. Massive Monster, Cult of the Lamb developers posted on Twitter that players should buy Cult of the Lamb now because they'll be deleting the game on January 1st next year. Massive Monster went on to say that they had future projects planned to be developed in Unity, but now those projects are going to be significantly delayed since their team would need to learn a new skill set in changing to a new game engine. Michael J. Foxney, developer on Dead Static Drive, posted on Twitter the major problems around the Unity deal with free-to-play games. You can make a game, have it be free to play with microtransactions, and say the game makes about 200,000 from in-app purchases from being installed 3 million times. That would then prompt the developers to owe Unity 20 cents per 2.8 million installs, which equals 560,000. That would be 360,000 more than they actually made. Many developers are concerned about not only their current and future games under this new policy, but their former games still available to purchase and download. Other developers were concerned that this could lead to smaller teams who build their games on Unity to pull titles from digital storefronts to prevent other players from downloading their games and initiating more fees. Forest and Among Us developer from Inner Sloth Games said, "I bet Steam, Epic, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft will love having waves of developers pulling their games." Sanatana Mishra, designer and developer on Tempopo, asked on Twitter, do I just rebuild my whole game in a different engine? Spent a small fortune on pro licenses to develop the game over several years. Seems kind of insane that Unity can just throw this out there on a whim. They should refund the lifetime license costs for everyone. In an additional statement, Unity specified that this new program was to ensure developers find success before the install fee takes effect, and that the only developers who will be impacted are those who have successful games and are generating revenue way above the thresholds. Of course, this raises heavy concerns on how exactly Unity is going to keep an install abuse system in place to make sure there aren't any fraudulent installs happening. Unity stated it would track installs with its own proprietary data and that it already had a fraud detection practices in their ads technology that's solving a similar problem, so they'll just use that as a starting point. Ariane Bjorgensen from Epic Games posted their Unreal Engine policy on Twitter in reply to the Unity news. Unreal's 5% royalty model only applies after developers' first $1 million in gross revenue. So if a developer makes $1 million and $1, they owe Unreal a whopping total of 5 cents. And Ari specified this is per title, and any revenue generated from the Epic Games Store will be excluded from that royalty. Unity was under heavy scrutiny prior to this policy change due to massive layoffs in the first half of this year, and also with John Riccitiello, CEO of Unity Technologies, coming under fire for referring to developers who don't focus on microtransactions as, quote, the biggest idiots. He did apologize for that statement, but I'm pretty sure with this new policy change, his feelings towards developers are fairly clear. Interestingly enough, Riccitiello also sold 2,000 Unity shares September 6th, just a week before this policy announcement. He also wasn't the only one to sell a bunch of stock a week before this game-changing announcement, as several other Unity board members sold significant numbers of shares. Unity stock prices took a heavy dip after this announcement yesterday, soon after the Unity runtime fee statement. This is still a developing story with ever-moving parts, so we'll be sure to keep you updated on any further changes and news about Unity's new policy. In other video game business news, the price of Square Enix shares have plummeted almost 30% since the release of Final Fantasy XVI, which means the company has lost nearly $2 billion in value. Final Fantasy XVI sold 3 million copies in its launch week back in June, and the following month, Square Enix told IGN that its sales were still extremely strong and that it was doing well relative to the size of the PS5 install base. Inside sources later told IGN that sales had slowed considerably, which isn't surprising considering the number of other huge games that released this year, but that it wasn't yet considered a disaster. The company losing $2 billion in market value, on the other hand, could be classified as disastrous. A report from Bloomberg dug into the matter and noted a sharp profit decline that began in August, but also pointed out that Final Fantasy XVI was doing a lot of heavy lifting, trying to recoup Square Enix's loss from Forspoken and Marvel's Avengers, neither of which seemed to meet expectations commercially or otherwise. According to Bloomberg sources, the root of the problem was game producers being given full control over the scope and direction of projects, and that shifting goals made for a volatile final product. I'm not really sure what the alternative is. Letting marketing departments and shareholders decide what makes for a fun video game doesn't exactly have the best track record. Moving forward, Square Enix's recently appointed CEO Takashi Kiryu intends to reduce the number of smaller games in development to focus on big-budget games that have a greater chance of making an impact on the company's bottom line. Though that's a two-way street. As the saying goes, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Counterpoint, go big or go home. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out in the long run, but in the meantime, Final Fantasy XVI has 2 DLC expansions in the works, and there's also a PC port coming soon. Meanwhile, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is just around the corner, and Tokyo Game Show kicks off next week, and it's possible Square Enix has something new to show off then.
Phantom Liberty, the first and only major expansion for Cyberpunk 2077, is nearly here. The highly anticipated DLC, which adds new quests, stories, locations, characters, and abilities, will be accompanied by a major update to the base game that adds all new, highly requested gameplay systems. In anticipation of the expansion and base game update, we've compiled this overview of everything we know about Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, including its release date, platforms, price, gameplay updates, story details, and more. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty will be released on September 26th for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, including Steam Deck. The expansion will not be released for the PS4 and Xbox One versions. Phantom Liberty costs $30. Alternatively, those who don't own the base game already can buy it and the expansion bundled for $80. CD Projekt Red describes Phantom Liberty as a new spy thriller adventure for Cyberpunk 2077. The developer cited Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, James Bond, Ocean's 11, and Bourne Identity as inspirations. Players will once again step into the shoes of V, who's been hired as a government secret agent to save Rosalind Myers, president of the new United States of America. Phantom Liberty is set in a new area called Dogtown, described as a ruined city within a city ruled by a trigger-happy militia. Joining Keanu Reeves, who reprises his role as Johnny Silverhand, is actor Idris Elba. The Night City newcomer plays Solomon Reed, a member of the Federal Intelligence Agency. Phantom Liberty will have multiple endings, one of which will unlock a 6th ending for the base game. Phantom Liberty and the base game's 2.0 update are bringing several additions and changes to the Cyberpunk experience. Things like an increased level cap of 60, vehicle missile launchers, and over 100 new items. The 2.0 update includes redesigned skill trees and perks, combat AI improvements, a new police system, and more. Cyberpunk 2.0 rebuilds the police system with an emphasis on clarity. CD Projekt Red says criminal activity is punished, runners are chased, and cyber psychos are flatlined, no questions asked. Getting away from the police will seemingly be more of a challenge too. CD Projekt adds, for those who decide to run, we prepared engaging car chases and roadblocks to make the escape more difficult. Reaching 5 wanted stars will spawn a surprise max-tac mini-boss experience, of which there are various archetypes. Now, will there be another Cyberpunk expansion after Phantom Liberty? No, CD Projekt Red has confirmed Phantom Liberty will be the only paid major DLC for Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt's Michael Nowakowski explains, it's a technological decision to be honest. This is the last time we're working on the Red Engine, for the time being at least, and in the foreseeable future, as you know, we're working on the Unreal Engine from Epic. This was one of the key reasons why we decided Phantom Liberty was the only one. Rather than work on another expansion, CD Projekt Red has its sights set on a Cyberpunk 2077 sequel, codenamed Orion. Once again, the world of Cyberpunk 2077 expands with Phantom Liberty on September 26th.
Luffy and the Straw Hat crew are continuing their journey to the Grand Line with a 2nd season on Netflix. The legend himself, Ichiro Oda, announced in a pretty cool video posted on Twitter that he and the team are moving forward with a 2nd season on the streaming platform, as well as teasing the pirate crew's Dr. Chopper. Now, in the video announcement and through a transponder snail, Oda-san let us know that it'll take a while for us to see the next season. Now, he didn't go into further detail, but it can be assumed that production is at least partially on hold due to the ongoing writers and actors strikes. The Netflix series was quite the success for the streaming platform out of the gate, and with positive reviews, it's no wonder it was renewed for a 2nd season. But it seems the producers behind the Netflix series are thinking well beyond a season 2. Now, speaking with Deadline, two of the producers on the series said, quote, "We have hopes for 12 seasons. There's so much material." And then went on to say, quote, "We're over 1,080 chapters at this point in the manga. We have plans with Matt Owens for how we would break multiple seasons, and I think even if we did 6 seasons, we would probably only use up half of the chapters of the manga. It really could go on and on and on. We've definitely had more thorough conversations about what we would do with season 2 should we have the opportunity, and then less extensive conversations about where we would go for seasons 3 to 6. Now, there's no question there's a lot of source material, but whether Netflix's shows last 12, let alone 6 seasons, depends on a few factors. Like if One Piece can maintain its popularity for that long, or if the streaming giant has the budget to pull off some of the more insane characters, situations, and fights that take place later on in the anime and manga. And not to mention the actors who, unlike their anime counterparts, are entirely portrayed by real people with lives to live. As their stars continue to rise, they may get approached to do larger projects that could serve to benefit their careers more than the Netflix series. Now, we've seen this happen with Henry Cavill, who left The Witcher after season 3, although his reasons for leaving that series are unknown. Only rumors circulating online of him possibly butting heads with its showrunner. Either way, playing any character for more than a decade straight is a big ask for any actor. And regardless of what the extended future may hold for One Piece, it sounds like anime and manga fans have at least one more piece of One Piece to look forward to whenever season 2 eventually hits Netflix. Aliens are real, or should I say non-human beings. Now this according to a researcher/journalist on unidentified anomalous phenomena. Yeah, that's a thing apparently. Now this researcher brought a couple of paper-mache looking bodies to Mexican lawmakers during its first congressional hearing on UFOs. Now the journalist by the name of Jaime Maussan uncovered these weird looking statues in Peru back in 2017 that were apparently determined to be between 700 and 1800 years old. Now they got, your typical alien appearance with the 3 fingers, odd sized heads that give them that alien look, all the typical trimmings of an ET. Now we're all just waiting on that DNA evidence to prove if these are in fact aliens. And our boy Jaime thinks that'll be the key to proving that they are in fact from out of this world. Now, if you're casting doubt on our trusted researcher Jaime, I don't blame you. Now, he tried to pull a similar non-human remains discovery back in 2015 that was proven to be nothing more than a corpse of a mummified human child. Now, this might be a similar case here. Now, maybe, these were just kids born with some type of birth defect. Not everything that looks atypical should be considered an extraterrestrial, Jaime. Seriously, Jaime. You need to chill out on all this alien talk, sir. You're taking this to the Mexico Congress? You're kind of obsessed with aliens. Just go watch a movie. What is wrong with you, Jaime? Seek help.
I'm Stella Chung, and that was your Weekly Fix. We'll be back here next Saturday with more of the biggest gaming and entertainment news. See you then.